Washington, where the impeachment of President Trump is happening right now. This is the House of Representatives. It's just done something historic. It has voted on the first article of impeachment, abuse of power, and the Democrats have won a majority. That means President Trump, no matter how much he objects, will forever be known as the third American president to ever be impeached. The second vote on the other article of impeachment is happening within minutes.
Something massive is unfolding in Washington right now, and almost everyone online is getting it wrong. You've probably seen the claims flying across social media. Trump is being removed, Congress forced him to resign, emergency action is underway. It sounds dramatic, it sounds explosive, but it's not reality. And if you don't understand the difference between what people think is happening and what is actually unfolding inside Congress, you end up with a completely distorted picture of the moment we're living through. The truth is far more complicated, far more serious, and in many ways far more alarming than the viral headlines suggest. Because yes, multiple impeachment resolutions have been filed against President Trump. Yes. Members of Congress have openly called for his resignation. Yes, constitutional tools exist that could, under the right conditions, remove a sitting president from office. All of that is real, but none of it means that removal is happening right now. None of it means that Congress has taken the final step. And understanding that gap between what's on paper and what's actually in motion is the only way to see what's really coming next. What makes this moment so important is not a dramatic showdown. It's the buildup, the pressure, and the groundwork quietly locking into place. So let's cut through the noise and walk directly into the facts, because the situation is far more serious than people realize. And the parts no one is paying attention to may end up being the parts that matter most. Right now, the biggest misconception is simple. People think Congress has already taken decisive action. They think the House has already voted on new impeachment charges. They think Trump has been ordered to step down. They think emergency measures have already been triggered. None of that is true. What is true is that the machinery exists, the documents exist, the accusations exist, but the decisive step, that one irreversible moment where Congress moves from talking about removal to actually doing it, that moment hasn't happened. And separating hype from reality is critical because without that clarity, you can't understand what pressures are building behind the scenes. But here's where things get very real. Multiple impeachment resolutions have been formally filed in Congress, official, documented, submitted, entered into the congressional record. These aren't rumors. These aren't social media fantasies. These are binding government documents drafted in the language reserved for the most serious constitutional accusations. House Resolution 353 lays out 7 separate articles. 7. Each one representing an extraordinary claim of presidential misconduct. Article 1. Obstruction of justice. Article 2. Usurping congressional authority. Article 3. Abuse of trade powers and international overreach. Article 4. Violating First Amendment rights. Article 5. Creating unlawful positions inside the government. Article 6. Bribery and corruption. And then there is Article 7, a word so rarely used in formal U.S. government documents that it jumps off the page. Tyranny. That isn't commentary. That isn't exaggeration. That is literal congressional language. That alone tells you how extreme this moment truly is. And that's only one resolution. There are more. House Resolution 415 makes similar arguments. House Resolution 939 does the same. Multiple filings, multiple lawmakers, multiple formal accusations, a growing paper trail that, taken together, forms the clearest signal yet that a significant group within Congress believes Trump has crossed the constitutional line. They're not whispering it, they're not hinting at it, they're writing it down in the most official way possible so that no future Congress, no future court, no future historian can pretend it wasn't said. But filings are not votes, and that distinction is where the confusion begins. You will hear that Congress demanded Trump resign. The truth is narrower. Individual members of Congress have demanded he step down. Editorial boards have echoed it. Activist groups are pushing it. But Congress as an institution has not issued a formal ultimatum. There is no binding resolution calling for immediate resignation. Not yet. And that distinction, as quiet as it sounds, matters enormously because it tells you exactly where the process stands and where it doesn't. That brings us to the heart of the issue. Removal. The idea that Trump could be forced out of office sparks intense reactions because it feels like a dramatic end to a chaotic presidency. But removal is not emotional. Removal is not impulsive. Removal requires very specific steps, and those steps cannot be skipped. There are only 2 constitutional pathways. The first is impeachment. The House votes by simple majority to impeach. If that passes, the Senate holds a trial where 2/3 of senators must vote to convict. Without 67 votes, removal cannot happen. Period. Trump has already been through this process twice. He was impeached in 2019. The Senate acquitted him. He was impeached again in 2021. The Senate acquitted him again. In both cases, Republican senators shielded him, not because the evidence was weak, but because the political risk was high. The second pathway is the 25th Amendment, Section 4. This requires the vice president and a majority of the cabinet to declare the president unable to fulfill the duties of office. It's not about misconduct, it's about inability. The president can contest that declaration, and if he does, Congress must vote to uphold the removal, and that vote also requires a two-thirds majority in both chambers. That mechanism has never been used for permanent removal, ever. It was designed for medical incapacitation, not complex abuse of power situations, and it relies on the president's own appointees turning against him. That alone makes it unprecedented and almost impossible under normal political conditions. Which brings us to the uncomfortable truth. Removal is constitutionally available, but politically blocked. The votes are not there. Republicans control the House. They are not putting impeachment resolutions on the floor. Even if Democrats found procedural loopholes to force debate, Republican leadership would shut it down. And in the Senate, conviction remains a mountain too steep to climb for now. Loyalty and fear still outweigh consequences. Cabinet members, chosen for their loyalty, are not invoking the 25th Amendment. They're not risking their careers on a gamble that could end their political futures instantly. That is the reality, not because the accusations aren't serious, but because the incentives haven't shifted. But here's the part of the story people overlook. Blocked is not the same as impossible. And conditions can shift fast under the right circumstances. There are 4 factors that could change everything almost overnight. The first is a dramatic collapse in public opinion, especially among Republicans. If Trump's base suddenly turned, if conservative voters shifted hard against him, lawmakers would feel that pressure instantly. Their loyalty is not philosophical, it's strategic. They follow the voters who keep them in office. If those voters change direction, politicians move with them, fast. The second factor is a catalyzing event, one so severe, so undeniable, that partisan defenses collapse. Not a slow drip of controversies, not a complicated legal argument, but a single moment so clearly wrong that it shatters the shield around him, something that even loyalists cannot explain away. These events are rare, but history shows that they reshape the political landscape in an instant. It's how Richard Nixon went from invincible to resigning within months. The third factor is internal coordination among Republicans. One senator breaking ranks does nothing. 2 change little. But when a group moves together, when they protect one another by acting in unison, the political cost spreads out. Suddenly, defecting becomes safer than staying loyal, and those coordinated shifts often happen quietly until suddenly they're visible all at once. The fourth factor is electoral change. The 2026 midterms could flip the House. If Democrats win, impeachment becomes straightforward. They wouldn't need a single Republican vote to pass articles. That alone would transform the political landscape, even if conviction remained uncertain. Impeachment forces senators onto the record. That pressure changes donor behavior. It shifts media coverage. It reshapes political incentives. But here's where the story deepens. Because the real danger is not whether Trump is removed tomorrow. The real danger is the message Congress sends when evidence piles up and nothing happens. The Constitution created impeachment as a tool, a safeguard, a way to protect the country from presidential misconduct. But a tool without users is meaningless. If a president can face allegations of obstruction, corruption, abuse of power, violations of rights, even formal accusations of tyranny, and remain untouched because his party shields him, then impeachment stops being a constitutional safeguard. It becomes symbolic, a gesture, a headline, and future presidents will notice. They will understand that impeachment only matters if you lose your party. That loyalty, not legality, determines accountability. That should terrify anyone who cares about democratic institutions. But accountability does not exist in one form, and it does not rely on Congress alone. Courts can still act. Civil cases can still impose financial consequences. Criminal investigations can still continue. Judges can issue rulings that block presidential actions. None of those processes require impeachment. None require Senate permission. And none stop simply because political will is lacking. That's why Trump's legal battles matter, even when Congress stalls. Accountability is a network, not a single institution, and the historical record is also a form of accountability. When Congress files impeachment resolutions, even if they don't get a vote, they create a documented record of allegations and evidence. Future administrations study these moments. Future lawmakers examine them as precedent. History remembers the accusations even if the system fails to enforce consequences. That documentation matters. It shapes the long-term narrative. It shapes how power is exercised moving forward. This is why it's so important to resist the urge to accept dramatic headlines as truth. Claims that Trump has been ordered to resign or Congress has already triggered removal feel exciting. They attract clicks. They create the illusion of imminent action. But they're not accurate. And when people believe overly dramatic claims that never materialize, they become cynical. They disengage. They stop paying attention because they feel nothing ever changes. That disengagement helps Trump. It helps anyone who benefits from political apathy, because pressure is the only currency that moves power, and pressure only exists when people stay informed and engaged. So here's the reality. Impeachment resolutions exist. Calls for resignation exist. Constitutional mechanisms exist. But Congress has not voted to remove him. No formal demand for resignation has been issued. No emergency mechanism has been activated. Those steps require political conditions that have not yet emerged. Understanding that reality is frustrating, but it is also empowering because it shows exactly where leverage exists. Not in rumors, not in sensationalism, but in elections, in public pressure, in sustained engagement. The next chapter of this story will not be written by wishful thinking. It will be written by voters, by midterms, by shifts in public opinion, by lawmakers recalculating their political futures. And that is why this moment matters so much. It's not the end. It's not the beginning. It's the shaping phase, the period where outcomes are still fluid, still forming, still influenced by what people choose to do. So stay alert, stay informed. Don't fall for viral exaggerations. Focus on what is real and where power actually moves. Accountability in a democracy is slow, messy, and rarely dramatic. But it is not imaginary. It becomes real when enough people decide it must. If you found this breakdown helpful, make sure you hit subscribe, like the video, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next deep dive. This channel cuts through the noise, exposes the real pressure points inside Washington, and keeps you ahead of misleading narratives. Stick around, because this story is far from over.